And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. And welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Bob. So, what's shaking, Bacon? I only have a few moments. How much time do I got here? Well, maybe half an hour or so. But um, nothing is as it seems to be. Everything you're told is a lie, and don't believe a word I say. You know, um, you have to be able to feel this stuff inside of you, right? And I constantly, when I do, guided meditation with you, I talk about your breathing in the prana energy, right? That's basically when they send satellites and from the space station, and they're looking over the planet. They see the blue sea down below. They see the blue sky. They see other like white and green and other energy forms that they can basically optically see. And the one that they have understood um, that brings life to, I call it prana. Other Eastern cultures call it prana, but it's a green light, and as it shines into us, right, it creates in our hemoglobin ATP. It's a molecule of energy. And in plants, the chlorophyll, that green light creates ATP, and that's what brings life to plants and to humans. And so, as our skies are sprayed, chemtrails are sprayed over our planet. Um, when it was first put out, it was that, oh, we're going to bounce the energy into um, you know so that motorcycle, the the carbon and the exhaust basically destroys the um, that ATP molecule, right? So so that's just one little kid down in the woods there, um, you know, driving all over everything. And since the cockroaches have shown up, all the plants here are dying. All the pine trees are turning brown. Right. And in 2019, they were fine. Right. 2020, they were pretty good. 2020, we started noticing something wasn't right. And 21, 22, it just really started going downhill like fast. And so that kid is being basically, you know, forced to do that. His father was a big motorcyclist, his grandfather's a big motorcyclist, you know, and they both, zeroed out in competition. Dad drove himself into a concrete wall and broke every bone in his body. Lucky he's alive, right? And but he's not. He brushes around. He doesn't really pay any attention to his kids. Um, he takes them around and does stuff with them, but it's the stuff he wants to do. Doesn't really ask them. And you look at them; they're always looking at their cell phones. They're always got a vacant look on their face. And they really, when I talk to them, they don't want to talk to me. You know, so you know, so the kid's motorcycle always breaks, right? So it's interesting because I would say the kid really doesn't want to be the motorcycle hero his dad wants him to be. The middle kid, the middle daughter, she, you know, is very successful at it, but she doesn't care. And at some point, she's just going to do whatever she wants to do. And her older sister, who's about, there's nothing here. You reading any books? No. She's a smart girl. They all get good grades, but they're not interested, not involved. They're not in engrossed in anything they're doing, right? And I when I was a kid, I had all these teachers who actually, involved me to be interested. Not by force or anything, but I was interested in what they were teaching. I liked it. Right, it was interesting. Right, and I've always been interested in knowing things. Right, and not like, hey there, Jane. And so it's an interesting dynamic. That's all I got to say. Um, what else? I could go on and on and on about negative things, but you know, that's all it is. Kind of annoying. Really doesn't mean anything. Right? It doesn't represent anything. It's a distraction of the ego's non-existence, basically. Is that one of my adepts? He's writing this book about the handbook on how to be happy, right? And I try to. If you listen this afternoon's, I did a show between noon and 1:30, 2 o'clock, somewhere in there. And he sent me his book, and I read it, and the beginning of his book was, and he was right. So I'm writing this book for everybody. He's right. He's writing a book that really, probably, might have a shot at being somewhat successful, right? Because it really doesn't manifest anything specific, right? How to be happy. What does that really mean? uh, I'm doing just what the kids do.
Recently, a speech from Maine State Senator Eric Brakey went viral. Now, in the full speech, which is about 18 minutes long, Senator Brakey was responding to a proposed joint resolution that would express support for Ukraine. But the senator called out the propaganda of corporate media and the Washington war machine, giving many of us hope that there are politicians in America who can see what's really going on. Here's a clip from his speech.
That's why there were agreements in those early days of the new era that Russia would not contest the reunification of Germany and its admittance into NATO. In exchange, American officials committed in writing that NATO would not extend, quote, 1 inch east beyond the German border. That agreement was promptly violated in the 1990s under President Clinton against the explicit warnings of American foreign policy experts who cautioned Russia would fear and react to these violations as nakedly hostile attempts to surround them militarily. And every American president since,
So,
Want to learn how to make videos like us? Find out after the video how we use insights from.
basically, I mean, that was well known. Anyone who understood foreign policy knew that. It was almost a 30-year period where this, Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Hungary, all the other that were in the Soviet Union became part of NATO and the EU. And Russia just said, oh, maybe. And no, again, this is all scripted out. This war is scripted out. This is getting the war machine ramped up for the big enemy, the red flag of aliens invading. right? So we can go into a one world order, just like Ronnie Reagan said. Just think how, if all our little problems here on Earth would go away if we were at a real threat from space, right? And so we will have basically Roddenberry's, you know, what was that thing called? We're all part of the uh, United Space Star, whatever they called it. You know, like the EU of the space guys, right? And uh, Spirit, hi ho. So Spirit, good to see you. Same with you, Jane. So these things are coming down the pike very quick, along with centralized digital banking, right? And just look what China has, where they have no money. They have this like digital yuan, and basically no one can save anything. Everything's automatically paid, and if the state doesn't like you, you don't exist. You don't eat. You don't move. You don't live. You don't. You die. And that's what America is heading for, relatively soon, right? And Catherine Austin Fitz talks about it. A lot of people talk about it, and it's right there in front of us, right? Just like Dr. Stephen Greer talks about, the red flag. He is, you know, trying to get disclosure. Say, hey, we've had anti-gravity since World War II. The Nazis had it. We've had it. We are the Nazis. The Hail Hydra. I mean, all of this stuff is there to basically, be something that you are shown, that you are part of, that you are being disclosed to, right? So that's the real question. What are you doing? What are you doing with your life, right? So here, I mean, that little noise right there, that's just what this place is going to be, just nonstop. That noise, chainsaws, tractors, bulldozers. It's going to rip this place apart. And the big corporate mobster guys have already done it to this place, and that's one reason why the trees are dying, because they've changed the homeostasis of the nature here. Right? Another school shooting. This one was in Nashville. Road is so sad, sick. How people can be monsters. No, so much. The young lady or whoever was a young female who shot these people at the school. I would say that she had been suffering her whole life, and the United States has quite a large number, if not the most, than almost the most of these kind of murders. I would say probably the most. We lead in all these kind of statistics. We have the worst health. We spend the most money on it, right? Cuba has better health care than we do, and we are squeezing them like a rock. Economically, socially, we have every kind of restraint on them, and yet, they have better health care than we do, right? They have better research, better everything, because they don't do it for a profit. They do it for the betterment of their community. So, um, so capitalism, if it was run like Adam Smith was talking about, would but there is no competition. This is totally a controlled market, right? We live in a fascist state, right? And fascism would be fine because Roddenberry's Star Trek, what do they call it? The Federation? That's what they call it, right? I mean, that is a fascist organization. It was, you did it. Everyone belonged to it. Yes, everyone was represented, but no one voted for anything. They just, yeah, they could do whatever they had. You want to be an artist, you want to be a musician, you want to be a carpenter, you want to be this, sure, no problem, right? and everyone gets paid, and everyone has a comfortable life, and everyone does what the federation says. And if you don't, then you're a terrorist. And now I would be considered the loyal opposition. And because I'm not for getting, there is no getting rid of any of this stuff, right? This all, so I've lived in this beautiful nature preserve for 20 years, right? The first 18 were like being in the Garden of Eden. All the animals would come and sit around me, talk to me, not talk, but communicate with me. I mean, the rabbits wouldn't eat my vegetable garden; they just eat the grass. They would like mow the lawn, right? So it was quite interesting to see now what's all going on. There's all this conflict. Peter, what about and that's kind of pretty much how they communicate, and they do what they want to do. You know, Colonel Sanders, he bought the hippie wagon, and he was supposed to finish paying me off a month ago, right? We just kept, I can't, blah 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 blah. He made 20 grand over fixing a house over there. What do you do with all that money, right? So it's like, oh man. So he has no rest, right? Where I can rest. Right? Even this, this may it used to like, "Ugh," and I'm just going, it's okay, right? It's not a big deal. I can't smell it really. It's not really that loud. He's like a good quarter mile away, but that's a quarter mile away. Wait till there's people doing that all over this thing. It's going to be so. We're getting close to when I have to say goodbye. So I just wanted to touch base with you guys. So prayer is what we need, right? And prayer is the sincere connection we have with our higher self. And so my adept, who wrote this book about, the guide to being happy. So, I looked up the ethnography of all of these words. So happy, actually, you take it back to Greek, it's luck, right? It's nothing substantial, right? And ness is a non-existent piece of property. It's usually what had been considered the point of a body of water, right? But it does, it's either under the water or in the mud, or it's non-existent. It's not. So happiness is luck that is non-existence, right? That's So his book is called The Guide to Happiness. Yeah, a guide to luck that doesn't exist, right? So I said you should make your and I didn't even say you should change the name of your book. I just said you should write this sentence down and use it as your guidepost, because basically he wrote his first 10 pages about the guide to happiness was to be happy, be peaceful, be joyful, be full of fun, be full of love. And transform yourself with these. So what are they? How do you do it? If it's a guide, shouldn't we like drill a little deeper than that? So I said you should have, this is your guidepost. Happy, one word. Ness is a second word. Colon, and then graceful virtue. Happiness, graceful virtue, a human guide to its own reward. So, and he said that was too complicated. And I mean, he is probably right. If he wants his book to, be a big seller, and because most self-help books really don't do any self-help. They are touchstones to certain things that people feel and don't really help them out. Now, some do, and those are the good ones, right? And a good, an early self-help book would have been, oh, Gurdjieff and Ouspensky's Meeting with Amazing Men gave the inspiration to Sid Arthur, right? And that book, they were like bookends, right? And Sid Arthur was inspired by these great guys who wrote pretty amazing theology, and this was the response to it. The reflection, right? That this guy who was pretty there responded to it and wrote this book that other people who didn't quite even know these guys existed or could read that book. Now I can smell his exhaust pipe. And so if I can smell it a quarter mile away, these plants, they are really not liking it. So it's an interesting thing to watch. And so I've had 20 good years here. So I'm going to sell and move on. And a great life giver, that some people call God or Yahweh or whatever you want to call him. It's pretty incidental, the words that we use. The words that are important come from that spirit, right? Supposed to feel that, right? So I feel, whenever I feel that noise, that smell, I feel that great spirit saying, no, I got your back. Don't worry about these guys, right? This is giving you the great opportunity to move on, to do something else, to be part of another experience. I accept that, right? So anyway. I'm gonna go because the battery's about to zip out here. So I'll just end right here with I love you guys, and I'll talk to you soon. Right? And you be good. Now here's a guy driving around in his dad is driving around in the lawnmower, right? It's like really.